What's up guys, Nax Tech here, and in this video I'm going to be checking out the Droid DNA specs. So this is the new smartphone from HTC, and currently it's only available in America. And I don't know if it's going to make its way to Europe and the rest of the world, but if it does, it might be under a different name. HTC do that. So let's just dive into these specs. You can see it's got the 4G network LTE on band 700, which is a band that's used by North America, so again just points to the fact that this phone is only for America at the time. Let's move on to the dimensions and body. You can see it's 9.7 millimeters thick, which is pretty good for thinness. You know, it's not the thinnest device we've seen in the world, but it's not the thickest either. 141.7 grams in weight, which is on the heavier side for a smartphone these days. But there is a reason for it, and let me get into these specs. So firstly, it's a Super LCD 3 capacitive touchscreen at 5 inches. If you saw the HTC One X, it had the LCD 2 screen and it looked fantastic. It was absolutely amazing. So this is Super LCD 3. So going on that, you know, with plus the number, it's going to be a better display. Now the big deal about this phone is the fact that it's full HD and it has a resolution of 1920 by 1080. Which is crazy, right? Now it's as high a resolution as like your smart TVs and stuff like that. What that equals at 5 inches is a pixel density of 441, which is absolutely crazy. It blows everything out of the water that we've seen so far. For example, the Retina display on the iPhone 5 is 326, so it's absolutely smashed that. Now the question is whether or not it's needed. Is it just overkill? Are we going to notice a difference? I don't know. There's got to be a point where the resolution is going to be you're not going to notice a difference, but saying that it is going to affect your performance. For example, you know, you're going to get a higher performing smartphone when it's running 720p than when it's running 1080. It's just the way it is. You know, it has to push more pixels. So the question is the screen worth it? It's got Gorilla Glass 2 as you'd expect, and the new HTC UI 4 Plus Sense. Let's move over to memory. You can see it doesn't have an SD card slot, so that seems to be a lot of the way the Android phones are going nowadays. It seems to be only Samsung that are keeping the SD slot alive. Internal storage, it only comes in 16GB versions with obviously 11GB usable for the user. That's pretty obvious, you know, that's the way it always is. 2GB of RAM for your multitasking needs. Yeah, it's always nice to have 2GB. It's pretty standard for high-end Android smartphones these days. You've got all your Wi-Fi, A, B, G, and N, Wi-Fi Direct, DNA, all those standards. Micro USB with MHL to plug into your TV or whatever, so you can watch it on TV. The rear camera is an 8 megapixel, probably have a really nice sensor, but you know, we're getting used to 8 megapixel now. It's the standard for high-end smartphones. There are better cameras. There's the Nokia Lumia, I think it's a 12 or 13 megapixel camera, so that's quite a bit higher. Capable of shooting 1080p at 30 frames per second. I really want something that's going to shoot 60 frames, just so you know I can say it does, but that's not available yet. Interestingly enough, it does have quite a good front-facing camera. It's got a 2.1 megapixel camera that's capable of shooting 1080p at 30 frames per second. That's interesting because most cameras on the front of smartphones are only capable of shooting 720p, so we are actually going up in the camera there. The OS is Android 4.1, it's upgradable to 4.2. Obviously with HTC you have to wait for HTC to give you the updates. They don't come directly from Google. So when the latest Android updates happen, you're going to have to wait a bit. Now let's talk about the chipset used in the CPU and GPU. It's the exact same CPU and GPU that's in the Nexus 4 and the LG Optimus G. It's the S4 Pro running at 1.5 GHz with the Adreno 320 GPU. It's a very strong GPU and it does great in the benchmarks. If you have a look at the HTC Droid DNA benchmarks, they actually score a lot higher than the Nexus 4, even though it has the same CPU and GPU. And you know, it's probably because HTC have done their own optimizations to the Dalvik JavaScript machine and you know, all the I/O stuff. It's all it all matters. So yeah, one question you've got to ask is, it's got to perform worse in graphics because it has to push a lot more pixels compared to, let's say, the Optimus G or the Nexus 4. It's pushing a lot more. It's pushing full HD compared to 720p. So that's going to take a hit. It just has to. But still a very good CPU and GPU there. Let's move on. Let's look at the battery. So the battery here, now the battery is interesting. It's got a 2020 milliamp hour battery. That's less than the Nexus 4. The Nexus 4 has a 2100 milliamp hour battery, and you know, I don't know how long that's going to last. I really don't, and it'd be interesting to see, because my Nexus 4 lasts a really long time, but you've got to say that the screen at 1080p is going to take a big hit in terms of graphics. It's got more pixels to push. It's got a higher resolution screen, so that's going to impact battery performance. It just has to. So we'll have to wait and see to see what that screen is going to do to it. In the actual, like, when looking at just the specs, it looks like a really nice phone. HTC have really brought themselves out of the grave here and got a really good phone. I really want to give it a go and play with it, but it's not out in the UK yet, so I'll have to wait until a version of it comes out. I really want to go ahead and see the screen. Is it going to be worth it? Is it not? Is 5 inches too big? I mean, 4.7 inches on the Nexus 4 is quite big for my hands, but 5 inches is bigger, and obviously the Note 2 is 5.5 inches, so we're kind of getting into that category there. So yeah guys, this has been my HTC Droid DNA spec video. I'll see you all later.